Hi, hello. My name is Ben, and this is Little Dead Aliens. This is the show where myself and a guest sometimes watch an episode of The X Files and then give horror movie recommendations based on the episode. With me today, I have Sean, aka Gay of the Dead. Welcome, Sean.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming. So, before we get into the episode and recommendations and stuff, if you want to just tell us a little bit about your relationship with horror. I know you're a big horror fan, and the X Files too.
Sure. Horror is literally in my genetics. I think I get asked, I think we all do that love horror movies, like, when did you discover you liked horror? And it literally has been since I can remember seeing movies because of my parents. But eventually I sort of made my way, and, through Famous Monsters and Fangoria to I had a blog called Gay of the Dead, and that was the first horror blog focused solely on LGBTQ filmmakers working in horror, and that was for Fangoria. It started in 2009, and that just sort of evolved into my little corner of the internet and the horror space being, queer horror filmmakers. I eventually created and co-edited a book called Queer Horror: A Film Guide, which is this thick ass encyclopedia of horror movies that have LGBTQ content in them, and I contribute to Fangoria. So that's sort of my horror journey. I'm really like in it to win it, basically. As far
Nice,
as X Files, yeah, it was certainly a bullseye for me as far as a TV show. Um, and yeah, I know I was just, I was a faithful watcher. It was sort of horror and science fiction mixed often. So that definitely appealed to me. And yeah, I watched the newest version when they did the reboot, which I enjoyed. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of this kind of television, though. Like, I'm an original, like, Twilight Zone and Night Gallery and Thriller and like all of those anthology shows. Yeah, that's all comfort TV to me.
awesome. Yeah, I didn't. I'm sort of the opposite. I didn't grow up with horror. My parents were very strict about what we watched, and I didn't really watch the X Files while it was on,
Mhm.
but got into it in the past few years a lot. So I also like to ask a kind of get to know you question of my guests, and because the book Queer Horror, which is awesome, I just wondered what queer horror movie you might most like to watch with Mulder and Scully.
Hmm. I guess I would say The Hunger. I think The Hunger would appeal to both of them. You know, Certainly Mulder with his I mean, in the show, he's sort of like a cad. I think when it comes to the ladies and would enjoy the male gaze, lesbianism in the film, and, I think Scully, lesbian icon that she was, um, certainly would be open to it.
Nice,
Yeah.
good answer.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, there's watching it with them, there's, a beginning, middle, and end, and there's no mystery. It's all right there out in the open, so they could, like, let go of their job for, 90 minutes and just
nice,
enjoy something that, they knew all the answers to.
right? You don't want them trying to, figure out the movie the whole time.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's get into it. Did you want to do the recap, or I can just kind of
I I
quickly?
I can do the recap. It's a pretty quick one.
Sure.
Um, the setup is a woman picks up a gentleman in a bar, and they go back to his place and have sex, and then he's giving her the thumbs up, 10 out of 10, when suddenly he dies of something we don't understand, but he has some sort of attack, and that's it for him. And then she metamorphizes, changes from apparently female to male in front of our eyes and exits the building. And now Mulder and Scully have been called in because we have a mystery to solve. Because a woman came into the building, a man walked out, And it turns out there are some clues to this particular crime scene that line up with, was it 4 or 5 other murders over the past decade? Um, and of course, as is always on this show, Mulder's like, "Yes, I remember a similar case from 10 years ago. Here's the file I have on my desk." And it leads them very conveniently, I might say. I will say a little sidebar about this episode. I do love the show, but this had some of the laziest plotting in it that I remember on the show. You know, it's like, "Oh, I remember this thing," and, "Oh, I have this thing right here," and just happened to see this picture. Anyway, the clues lead them to an Amish or Amish adjacent community, uh, where some version of transness, I guess you would say, exists among these folks. It is established that they can change their gender, or there's some sort of metamorphosis that happens in their life. Um, and as per, most X-Files episodes, the mystery goes unsolved because right as they sort of figure out what's happening, this group of people, this community just disappears off the face of the earth, and there's a crop circle left behind, implying that there's some sort of alien presence happening.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to think about last night or the night before, I was
Mhm.
trying to think about how they got to the Amish community, like, what was the and I think it was that the murder started in that town and,
Mhm.
like, Mulder traced it back, which is kinda crazy.
Right.
Um
There was the town, and also there was a certain kind of clay that
Oh,
was
right,
only in that town, and I think the most current murder victim had some of that clay in the wounds, which meant that the person who killed him had it under their nails. This is one of the convenient things. It's
right.
somehow this person hadn't washed their hands in several days, and this stuff was still under their nails. Yeah, so that was how he connected it.
Yeah. And something I've mentioned almost every episode now is like in these episodes, some of it, even if as you're watching it and right after you watch it, you're like, wait, what happened exactly? Like, I still don't understand if they were like, because the dude passes out at dinner and then they take him to the weird clay place and he's
Mhm.
like stuck in the goo and then he turns into a woman. So I don't know if they like die and then change sex, but obviously the dude that's killing people or the person killing people is changing back and forth however they want. So yeah, they don't go into that a whole lot, but yes, that's what happens in the episode.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah, I did leave that out, that somebody when they're when Mulder and Scully visit this community and they sit down to dinner with them, this older gentleman has an attack and they carry him away, and we see that he's covered in basically like oatmeal or clay or whatever. And then yes, he's transforming into a woman, and it's a little inconsistent with the younger version of this species, I guess we would say, who can do that at will. So, yeah, it was that was felt a little open-ended to me.
right. And they also do, and I just mentioned this because it's one of the things that I wanted to talk about is they do this thing where they can like touch someone and cause them to the person to be like enamored with them. So like
Mhm,
Scully gets really into one of the guys, brother Andrew, because he keeps like rubbing her hand, and we see the person who's killing people. We see them do it to the people in the clubs and stuff. So,
mhm.
um,
Yeah,
which I
it's
guess if we want to just get into it, that's one of
mhm,
the things that I wanted to point out is just the idea of like someone preying on someone and seducing people,
mhm.
and that how we see that in horror. I don't know if you had anything for this kind of idea.
Yeah, it's interesting for folks that don't have the visual in their head yet about what happens. They imagine shaking somebody's hand, but they start sort of rubbing your hand gently while you're shaking their hand, and the implication being that there's some sort of pheromone or something being released that causes you to be sexually attracted to that person. Again, this is another one of those lazy plotting things where Scully approaches this gentleman from this community and puts out her hand to shake when obviously these people just wouldn't do that, right? And she just keeps her hand up, but we need to establish that happening to her. So, so they
Right.
put a handshake in there to make it happen. Two, the two films that I thought of when I watched this episode again, that really landed. Well, the first one is the Species franchise, and I'm most familiar with the first one of the franchise. So what I'm talking about may not have carried through to all of. I think there was 3 of those. So the in Species, the titular Species is played by Natasha Henstridge, an alien, and she the movie is following her seducing people and killing them. And in that film, it's more just plain seduction. I mean, she's hot as hell. And, the dudes and the ladies who are into ladies are all, ready. And there's no pheromones needed
Right.
to get them into bed. As I recall, it starts out in a club like this, or there's a big scene in a club. Um, Much like this episode where people are being picked up in a disco dancing club featuring the best 1990s Canadian music.
Right.
Uh, and yeah, that really sort of feels like it's in conversation with this in a way. But the sort of transness of it all, the metamorphosis of it all, reminds me of a movie called Splice. Do you remember a movie called Splice with
I
Adrian Brody?
I don't think I've seen it.
They grow a creature, from, inception to adulthood, and splice, of course, talking about, genes, gene splicing. And the creature grows as a female and eventually transitions to the male form. So it's sexually aggressive and it attacks people in both forms. That was the one that really landed for me with this film is Splice, which is fine. It wasn't an amazing movie, but it was had an interesting premise. And Adrian Brody gets attacked by this creature at one point and forced, I mean, sexually assaulted basically. And I think, as I recall, you realize later that at that point the creature had changed to what we've decided is male in the
Uh,
film. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that. I know I've heard the name, the title, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a solid rental. I'll give it that. It's a solid rental.
yeah. What's funny is I wrote down the Species series too because, yeah, it's kind of the same thing, and I believe there are, like, club scenes where
Mhm.
she's, like, picking up people to murder, but I watched all the Species movies, I think, last year for the first time, and I don't remember much about them at all. They're
Yeah.
decent action horror movies, but,
The
yeah.
only real thing I remember from those movies is in the very first one where there's another woman in the club who is, coming on to one of the men that Natasha Henstridge has her eye on. And so when the woman goes to the restroom, she goes and kills this woman by yanking her spine out her back.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good scene.
The big set piece from that film.
Yeah, that's cool. The first I thought of was Hellraiser, especially the first one because she's seducing men and bringing them back, so
Mhm.
this her ex-lover who's, like, just gross
Mhm.
and eat them and, like, take their life force or whatever, and there's a bit of weird body horror-ish type stuff in the cult thing with, like, the goo that they're putting them in and those weird, like, caves that Mulder's in, for some reason, reads as, like, body horror to me, even though it's not really, and Hellraiser, we get the body horror, so Hellraiser from 1987.
Mhm.
I also thought about Under the Skin from 2013,
Mhm.
uh, because Scarlett Johansson is seducing people and bringing them to that weird black void,
Mhm.
um and I think she's supposed to be alien, like the cult people, they're
Mhm.
aliens.
Yeah.
Um,
That was a really good movie. She made 2 movies sort of similar, I think back to back. I wanna say, wasn't Lucy? I think that was also a Scarlett Johansson science fiction
I
film.
believe so. I don't know
Yeah,
if I've seen that one, I thought that was like a spy movie.
I could be wrong about that. Once you get to a certain age, it all blends together.
Right, exactly.
Um,
Um,
yeah, my question is, you say Hellraiser, and I certainly love that movie. and there's a task at hand there, which is, I need to bring these guys back so my dead lover can have skin. I'm a little fuzzy on the motivation of this creature in this episode, you know?
Yeah, I don't think that's ever made very clear
Mm.
at all. Um,
The friend brings up, so at a certain point in this episode, Scully has interacted with like the best friend of the creature unknowingly. And he tries to seduce her at one point, but he also reveals to her that the friend had like found magazines, outside of their sphere of, their cults or what, their community, and had aspirations to be in like our world. There's that thing that happens in those communities where they send people out, I think for a year, 2 years, where they live just in modern society, and it's to give them a chance to experience it and then make a choice on whether or not they want to stay or they want to return to their religious, community. And it seemed to a certain extent that's what this creature was doing. They got sort of a taste of it through these magazines that the two of them found when they were out, playing in the woods. And so he or she, whatever pronouns we're going to use for this creature, is sort of out there experiencing it. But then the first scene where she seduces the gentleman and he dies, the look on her face seems punitive. It seems like the goal was to kill this person. And so
mm,
that makes me wonder, oh, are they, ridding the world of these, of people that will just have sex, with a stranger? I know it's a little murky.
yeah, it's hard to say if it's like a morality thing, or I sort of read it as like these creatures don't really have sex the same way that we do,
Mhm.
or experience sexual attraction the same way like humans maybe do. So finding the magazine, like their porn magazines, maybe like perverted this creature's way of like viewing it. So he wants to have sex now, and then it kills people. Uh, but yeah, I'm not really totally sure. It's an odd. It's like the main thing of the episode, but it's also an afterthought.
Mhm.
Uh, in the episode of why is he killing? Why is the creature killing people?
Mhm.
Why does it wanna have sex with humans? We don't know.
It also leads to another question. If these folks are some version of alien, as is implied by the crop circle and their just absolute disappearance. And there's another moment when we see a group of them literally disappear before our eyes. They just
Mm,
sort of fade out. So like they have some sort of teleportation power. I guess they're also just conservative aliens.
yeah,
Why did they decide if they're going to live among us, to live on our planet but not among us, and present as religious conservatives? Well,
yeah,
I'm not sure what, and not just religious conservatives to keep people out, but when they're interacting with Mulder and Scully at this dinner, they're espousing conservative views. So yeah, it makes it 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 makes you wonder what was the writer's intention with this.
yeah, because they clearly don't want interaction with humans. Then, like, why are you on Earth?
Right. Why does it have to be Amish? Couldn't you just like have an apartment building where you all live? Like, like you've
Yeah.
obviously got means. Yeah. You could,
Maybe it was supposed to be something to do with the clay, like they needed or wanted the clay,
mm,
'cause it but that doesn't I mean, they don't flesh that out at all, so I don't really know.
right. The clay seems to be naturally occurring, but when they take the person who got sick at the dinner into these caverns, the caverns they have that look of like living material, like we see
Mhm.
in frequently in these kind of things where it looks like it's a hive or something. Um, so they didn't bring the clay with them, or did they? Who
Yeah,
knows?
maybe they just built these weird tunnels out of space clay.
Right. There's also the possibility that they are human and they've discovered this stuff and have transformed over the years, and somehow they've, developed these various powers and also technology that we don't see to,
Yeah.
to get them out of there.
They could have just disappeared and made the crop circle to make
Mm.
Mulder think they were aliens.
Mm. Right. And I don't think they ever come back. This isn't one of the things where they circle back with these folks.
No. I wish they did because I do really like this episode, and I think a lot of this stuff is interesting,
Mhm,
but and maybe they had plans to, and that's why there are so many
mhm.
holes or questions, but
I'll say that one of the things I didn't mention at the top of the show that I guess is sort of pertinent here, I probably should have led with it, is that I wrote for a Disney Channel series called So Weird, which was the kids X-Files basically for
mm,
3 seasons. So the premise was the same-ish, was centered on a young girl and her mother, played by Mackenzie Phillips, and her mom was the lead singer in a rock band that was touring the United States in a bus, like a rock, tour, and she and her brother and the band were all together, and every time they'd go into a town, something, paranormal would happen,
mm,
and every episode was sort of monster of the week, but there was also an overriding plot that had to do with the lead character's dead father and him communicating to her from beyond the grave. Um, but we had to supply the reason when we did those episodes. Like we had to figure out like how it was happening, even if it was magic or paranormal. Like there had to be, you know, a reason. My innate sort of sense of like wrapping things up with this episode and with a lot of X-Files episodes, is a little unsatisfied.
yeah. I think that's interesting because I think it's a more adult concept to just be like, sometimes stuff just happens,
Mm,
but actually maybe that's more of a kid's way of looking at things.
maybe.
Uh, so yeah, I don't know. I would assume that they would have yeah, they would go through that process of like, why is this happening? How is this happening?
Mm.
But they don't seem very concerned with that in a lot of these episodes.
Yeah, and everything happens, I think, over the course of a day, right? Like, well, there's the stuff at the beginning, but once they figure out, the Amish community, they're there, and I think it all happens over the course of an evening and the next day.
Yeah,
You're right.
at most it's like 2 days. Like
Mhm,
they're there the night and they leave,
mhm,
and yeah, I think they come back the next day
mhm.
and they're gone.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I had the answers for you. So another kind of theme, the episode is called Gender Bender, which
Mhm,
is o one of the reasons I thought that you would be a good guest because you seem to be an expert in queer horror, and I was trying to think of horror movies that sort of take on the idea of like gender and gender identity. And there weren't a ton that I could think of. I probably just haven't seen many. One thing we do see a lot of is the idea of like a male killer who dresses as a woman.
mhm.
Um, some examples, Psycho from 1960, Dress to Kill in 1980, also The Lambs. I don't know if you saw Cherry Falls from
Oh,
2000.
yeah. Mhm.
So that's one of the things we see a lot, which is obviously
Yeah.
thing is viewed kind of negatively
Yeah.
in a lot of
Yes.
ways.
Well, there are almost 0 horror movies with any sort of trans representation where that representation is positive. And by positive, I don't mean that they're the hero. I just, because trans people can be villains too. That's fine. But it's their motivations are almost always rooted in their transness. And so it's like, this is the thing that has made them crazy. It's the thing that
Mhm.
made them a killer. They're because they're an abomination. So yeah, it's an unfortunate sort of trope, the movies that you mentioned. But what I actually found interesting is that this episode doesn't make their ability to change, to transition back and forth, the reason why they're doing it. It's their escape method. It's part of their sort of arsenal of how they get away with it, but it's not their motivating factor.
Mm.
which is actually kind of progressive, right? Like they have this skill that they're using, um, but it's not driving them mad. It's not it's not considered an aberration within the episode in a way, in a negative way. There's a whole community of people who apparently can do this. So when you're talking about things like Dress to Kill or um, what I termed in the book dude in a dress, the killer's a dude in a dress. Um, it actually scores a little higher on
Yeah,
the representation metric where
right.
so many just really don't.
Yeah, that's one thing I did like about this episode is that it's not uh, it's just like a thing that they do. No one really comments on it in any moral or, like, derogatory way. They're just like, "This is weird that
Mm.
a woman was here and then a man left." And even Mulder and Scully, once they sort of realize that that's what's happening, neither one of them is, like, bothered by it. They're just like, "Oh, that's weird."
Right. It's just the
Uh,
facts. It's just
yeah.
what's happening. Mhm.
And if anything, it makes them like the creature is using this ability as like to make it an equal opportunity of like who they can kill.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's a shame that this episode didn't have more meat to it, as far as that topic, because it feels like the writers and the show itself were leaning on the side of not positive representation, and we weren't necessarily talking about that back when the X-Files was in full swing, but from a non-judgmental, sort of from a Star Trek point of view, if that makes sense. On Star Trek, there's no judgment about anybody's anything except for like cruelty and war. So there's all these different kinds of creatures and sexualities now, and life forms and philosophies and things like that, and they're all just presented as facts, not within a context of uh, a moral compass. And that's what this one does. It's just a thing that's happening.
Right. And Mulder and Scully are both sort of that way about most people they encounter where there's not a lot of judgment and
Mhm.
it's more of just like they take people at face value, specifically Mulder, where he's interacting with like unhoused people, he's interacting with all kinds of people that he just doesn't he treats like people.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's really cool about this episode is that they just treat these creatures like they would any other creature on the show.
They're just concerned that somebody's killing somebody.
Right.
They're FBI agents. That's their bottom line.
Yeah.
So they want to make that stop. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah. There's a movie called Femme from 2023. I don't know if you've seen this. Um,
Yes. Wait, are we talking about the same one? It's British,
yes.
and it's about the drag queen who's
Right.
assaulted, who then starts a relationship with her attacker.
Right.
I
Uh,
love that movie. I just think
yeah.
it's brilliant.
It's not it's more thriller, I think,
Mhm.
than horror. Like, I found it because it was presented to me as a horror movie, but it's definitely not a horror movie. I think it's more thriller. But yeah, the plot is that this, person who's a drag performer is attacked while in drag by a group of guys, and then she went out of drag. He meets one of the guys in a bathhouse and starts a relationship, and it's, like, very much about, toxic masculinity and, like, the person he's starting this relationship with is very closeted and like doesn't want his friends to know that about him, and this person is starting this relationship seems like with the intent of like ruining this dude's life by
Mhm.
outing him, and then it just becomes sort of tangled. But it's an interesting idea about gender identity that i
Mhm.
I haven't seen in a movie in that kind of way where it's like the way these characters are perceiving one another based on how they're presenting,
Mhm.
um, is just really interesting.
Yeah, if you think about it, like think about a movie like The Crying Game, where that which isn't exactly the same, but there's sort of this dynamic of people coming together, unexpectedly coming together and having a relationship. And that movie was definitely centered on the man struggling with that, and most movies that that um And I say the man because Jay Davidson, I believe, identifies as trans, but I could be wrong. They so frequently center on the formerly straight dude with a question mark, questioning straight dude, and the drag queen or the trans person is this sort of the satellite of, circling around them in the story. Where in Femme, it's actually the person who's the drag queen that it's really centering on, and it's interesting you say it's not a horror movie. You're right, and it's almost not even a thriller. It's just more like a very intricately woven drama. But there are moments, not to spoil everything, but there's a moment when the lead character is in the young man's flat that he shares with people and they can't know that they're there, and it's it's like white knuckle. I'm watching this like sweating with white knuckles, like how are they going to get out of this? um and then again, I don't want to spoil the ending, but the ending is devastating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some suspenseful moments and it gets tense, but it doesn't really get into horror territory at any
Mhm.
point, I don't think.
Yeah.
But if you want to move on and talk about some tropes, we can talk about one of my favorite tropes in horror, which is like the cults. I really love weird cults. I think that's my favorite part about this episode, I think for sure, because this cult is very weird and very. There's a part where they're walking through the woods to get to the place where they all live, and like they surround them and they're like, you need to give us your guns. And like it's very, creepy and ominous. Um, do you have any favorite cult horror movies?
Oh, that's a good question. Cult horror movies. Hmm. What is there's okay, again, I'm so it's killing me that I don't. Oh, well, here's one with the title I remember. Red State. Do you know the movie Red
Oh,
State?
yeah.
Kevin Smith?
Mhm.
That's an interesting one. I wouldn't say it's a favorite, but it's an interesting exploration of that subject matter. And just, it doesn't end well for anybody
Yeah.
in that film. And I think the thing about cults that I react to most is it's sort of the combination of like mind control and bullying, right? Like it's you have to be a charismatic leader and you have to, get into these people's minds, and they, typically people that join these cults are they're searching for something, and it seems like it's being offered by the cult, whether or not that's true. But then it becomes about how you're treated to keep you in line.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've never seen a cult film. I'm racking my brain where I thought, yes, I want to be part of that. I wish I was part of
Right.
that. Yeah, no, that would be actually a great movie. To the movie where you uh you as an audience member in the theater are literally like on board with them, and then somehow it flips the script and you're like, oh
Mm.
wait, no. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? There is one like that. It's not that I wanted to be part of it, but do you remember an after school special called The Wave?
No.
It's so good. So, it's based on a real event where, like, a social studies teacher in high school, he's teaching World War II, and I'm gonna really give a truncated version of this. His in his class, he decides to do this experiment where he runs his class from, like, the top down. Like, people have to when they answer questions, they have to stand up beside their desk and say, "Sir, yes, sir," and then answer the question and then say, "Sir," and then sit down. eh, Discipline becomes a thing. And then they come up with a symbol, which is this wave that he explains, like, this is our symbol for this class. And if you're in this class, this is this symbol for you. And we're all going to wear these clothes. And he presents it in a way, slowly but surely, step by step, that makes it appealing to this class to be part of this secret society that this teacher is running. And he informs them that it's a nationwide um, organization, and that there's chapters all over the world, and more people are brought into this class, and like weak people are given jobs to do, and suddenly they become strong, and it's all about the social structure and discipline and caste system and all that stuff. And he's like, all right. And then there's a worldwide leader and he's going to be revealed and, let people know that there's a big rally tonight at the gym and only for people that you trust that could be part of our secret society are allowed to come to this thing. And so everybody gets to the gym and he's like, all right, are you ready to see your leader? And he pulls the thing aside and it's a picture of Hitler. And it's basically it's a lesson. He's like, so when you ask, how did he how did people go along with this? Just know that you've just done exactly the same thing. And again, I'm making it very there's a lot more to it than that. It's really skillfully done. But when I think of cult films, I think of that after
Yeah.
school special.
Interesting. No, I've never seen that. That sounds really good though. When you were saying that about like a cult you would maybe want to join, I think Ari Aster gets close in Midsummer.
Oh god. Oh god, that movie.
Yeah, there are a few things where it's like, okay, I got to nope out, but
Right, like jumping to your death, like that would be
right.
a non-starter for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Um,
there's 2 types of people. There's people that think that the boyfriend deserved it, and then there's men.
right. Yeah.
I've not
Uh, eh,
I
sorry, I guess we can get back into some other cults.
Mhm.
So, Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin, which I think is from 2021, and I think is still the most recent Paranormal Activity movies. I don't know if you like those movies or not.
I love them.
Okay, this one, if I remember, it's not actually found footage. Is it? Anyways, it doesn't matter. The girl goes to this weird cult, um, and they are very much like the cult in this episode. They don't have modern technology. You know, I believe to visit someone in her family or someone in her family has died.
Mhm.
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it.
There's are you talking about the one with the witches? It's just tough because they all because their timelines are interwoven, it's tough
Yeah.
to remember which film is which. Um, but I know what you're talking about. There's the one where she goes to visit like a place where there's a bunch of witches, but then there's also the one that was set. It was very much askew. It was the one set in like Spanish speaking Los Angeles.
Oh, that's Marked Ones, I think it's called.
Yeah, smart ones.
This is the one where, yeah, she goes to the like, it's like an Amish type community.
Mm,
Um, and then there's like this weird underground layer or something.
hmm
I don't remember how it ties into the other movies, but I it's about a cult, so I liked it.
Yeah. There was the documentary about the Jim Jones cult that was fascinating because it
Mm.
was all filmed by news people. And of course, that ended so terribly, including the murder of journalists and politicians that had come to visit and were headed toward their plane when they were attacked by cult members. And that's all recorded on news cameras. And
Huh.
it's really just, I mean, talk about unsettling. Um, but a fascinating look into like what it takes to lead a group of people like that.
Huh. Yeah. I'll have to watch that.
Mhm,
I like those kind of I like cold documentaries as well.
mhm.
But it is interesting that you say bring up Jim Jones because The Sacrament from 2013,
That's the one I
uh,
was trying to remember the name
yeah.
of. That movie actually is almost a shot for shot recreation of the documentary.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's Ty West,
Mhm,
so I'm a big Ty West fan. It's found footage, and it's just about I believe it's a guy who's going to see his sister who is in this cult
mhm.
and his 2 friends, and they're, like, filming it, um, and then, shit goes bad.
Right. It ends well for no one.
Right. And also, there's a movie called The Conspiracy from 2012, which is similar. It's found footage where, these guys are making a quote unquote documentary about this, conspiracy theory group that they, um, are researching and they like infiltrate one of their parties and it's very like eyes wide shut. It's not the best movie you're ever gonna watch, but if you're into like found footage and cults, you'll probably enjoy it.
Mhm.
So
And
that
I
one,
am.
it's pretty good. And then I don't know if you had any other tropes or that you wanted to mention or
Um,
uh,
I'm looking up really quickly. There was a film. Oh boy. Again, I can never remember titles. It's a dinner party, and it's a woman has invited her ex and her ex's current spouse, and
um,
she's dating a guy who's involved in a cult, and you find out by the end it's a death cult.
right,
And yeah, and it's a claustrophobic. It all takes place in this apartment, and again, doesn't end well. But then in the end, you find out that this cult is everywhere.
right.
Um,
I
has
think it's
something.
just called The Invitation.
The Invitation. I was
Yeah.
thinking party. Yeah, The Invitation. That's a good one.
That is a good one. That
Yeah.
one is it's one of those ones that feels a little too real, so, like, the anxiousness you feel while watching it is, like, a little too close to home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
So, the only other trope that I really thought of, and this is one that we see, and I don't like, so prevalent that I don't even know how to talk about it,
Mm.
is, like, the, uh, sex equals death, like, just, like, don't have sex because it's really bad and you shouldn't do it and then you'll die. um, which we see in like most 80s slashers.
Yeah, it's in this one, I mean, certainly that's what happens. It's interesting because it's contextualized so much differently than in slasher movies, which is, where that sort of feels like it started. Um, because this one seems almost more of a byproduct of sex versus a punishment for like a universal punishment for it. Although as I'm saying that, yes, it could still be a karmic punishment because you picked the wrong space alien to have sex with.
Right,
And so now you're paying for it when you should have been, asking them out on a date and wooing
right.
them, saving yourself.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting things and one of the things that really I can't stop obsessing about tropes is how they change and how they become a shorthand to mean something even when they don't maybe intend it to be that because it's just sort of, if you're writing a scary story, sex equals death. You don't even that doesn't need to be a conscious decision that you're making. It's just sort of like in the DNA of a scary story at this point, which is what it feels like here is like they're not trying to make any statement about sex and it being bad necessarily. It's just like an ends to a mean, which is the killing.
Yeah, I did a little, research on this episode before we talked, and uh, e- people were really trying to sort of bend over backwards to contextualize this part of it as, panic over relationships in the 90s and the, gender being examined in the 90s. And I just find the 90s to be a really shallow period for our sort of exploration and excavation of like what makes us tick. It just feels very reflexive and easy. And so maybe that was what was meant by, maybe that was the intention of the writers, but that just doesn't land for me in this one. And again, it's because there's so little meat on the bones here. It's hard to what were we supposed to learn? Like, what is the lesson we take away from this episode of the X-Files? And I'm having a real difficult time putting my finger on that. Like, what is it?
Yeah,
And I don't think it has to do with sex. I think I don't know. Maybe it's instead of a lesson, it's a reflection, and it's like an embodiment of our xenophobia. Like, be careful. They're infiltrating us and you don't know it, so we have to be ever vigilant about people who are
right.
different.
Yeah, I think if we're trying to find what moral they're trying to teach us, you have to look at who's being punished, and no one is really punished.
Mm-mm.
Like if their intent was like, sex is bad, don't have sex, don't have, you know, sex with strangers or whatever, then we would have seen the creature punished at the end. I
Mhm.
think they just disappear with everyone else.
Right. And they all have the power to do this. They all have the power to seduce. So is the message that they shouldn't be using that? Like that's one of those things that they're supposed to be fighting against? Like, in the sort of quasi-Christian framework, we're supposed to be, pushing back against our more baser urges. And so maybe that's, again, they didn't give us a lot to work with here
Right.
with this monster of the week.
I
Um,
would say the moral is if you are different, you're eventually gonna be pushed out. Like,
hmm,
you're gonna be alienated and have
right,
to leave,
right. Yeah.
which
It's
is
more
not
fun out there. That's also a part of it. It's more
right.
fun out there.
Yeah, it's more fun to just have sex with strangers. Okay, so, I mean, I don't really have any other tropes or themes or anything that I really saw in this episode. I don't know if you did or had any other movies. Sometimes at the end, I like to talk about just, like, styles and vibes of the movies that make me think of other movies. I don't know
Uh-huh.
if anything else came to mind for you.
Splice was the big one, the Adrian Brody movie. There's also a little sort of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers adjacent to this. If you're looking at through the lens of these are not human people, these are some form of alien, you know, infiltrating us, looking just like us.
Mhm,
I could feel, and there's the how they sort of do that rebirth thing, in the cavern. That feels it was it 1976, but the second Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It feels
mhm.
very very much like.
Yeah, that's true, and then we don't ever see them in any other form.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, I guess they're just aliens that look like humans that can change
Hmm. Yeah,
genders.
right. That'd be so convenient.
Yeah, it would be, for sure.
I'd never get another speeding ticket.
Oh, yeah, true.
Right? You just like flirt with the do a quick female presenting change and flirt with the cops.
Right. Rub their hand a little.
Right. Oh, there's that.
Okay, well, I mean, unless you have anything else to talk about, I guess we're
I think we've wrung this one out. I think we've excavated this one for all the gold.
awesome. Okay, well, do you wanna tell us where we can find you online?
Sure. My sort of alt is Gay of the Dead, and you can find me pretty much everywhere with Gay of the Dead. I'm, of course, on Facebook, Blue Sky, Instagram, grudgingly on TikTok. Uh, I stuck it out on Twitter, so I'm over there, although I don't do very much over there anymore. And what else? Oh, and I have a Patreon, my Gay of the Dead Patreon, which is right now the home for Queer Horror: A Film Guide, the podcast, which is I host and I bring the contributors to the book on one at a time, and we pick one of the movies they wrote about for the book, and we do a deeper dive for each episode. And it's also where I'm rolling out my next book, Gay of the Dead Conversations with LGBTQ Filmmakers Working in Horror. So every chapter as I complete it, I put it up on that Patreon. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome, yeah, I've been listening to your show, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks.
So everybody, yeah, check that out. And I'm Ben. This is Little Dead Aliens. You can find me at Little Dead Aliens on Blue Sky and Instagram. I'm also part of the Glitterjaw Queer Collective of podcasters. So you can find more information about my show and lots of other great shows at glitterjaw.com. Uh, Sean, thank you again for being here. It was a great time.
Thank you. I'm always happy to talk about horror movies and horror TV.
Well, thanks again, and everybody have a good day. Don't have sex. Well, I guess you should maybe have sex with strangers. I don't know. Make sure they're not aliens.